Hello YouTube, this is Painter for Hire 1975 with you for another installment. This is part 8 of how to paint a resin bust. Before we get started, I want to add that part 7 had to be broken up into two parts, part 7A and part 7B, so go check those out if you haven't already. Okay, now let's get started. Today we're going to basically be doing the rest of the details of the kit, the belt, the pants, and the gun. One thing that I do want to add is I got a couple messages. People had asked me why I haven't painted the eyes in yet, and I will get to that. It's just my style. I usually paint the eyes last. That's usually one of the last things I do. That and the lips, and details of the face. So that's just my style. But be patient, we will get to the eyes. Okay, now with that being said, what we want to do is basically just want to start out with just like a brown leathery color for the belt. I'm choosing this color from Delta Ceramic Coat called Autumn Brown. So basically, you just get a little bit on your paintbrush, then just like before, you go lightly with it. Don't want to overdo it. Okay, now as you can see, the brown that I chose for my belt is now complete. After I had dull coated the piece, I mixed up a little bit of a darker burnt umber wash this time because I want the belt to be a lot darker. So what I'm doing is I'm actually going to be really staining the piece, and I'm going to be going a lot darker since it's going to be a leather belt, and plus by watching the movie, it looks like his belt's pretty dark. So I'm just going to go over this with a darker wash than I did on the shirt. And it's okay when you want to go darker. It is okay to have a little bit more oil, a little bit more paint on the brush, because you want it to be darker, and that's what I want to achieve. And the more paint, the darker it's going to get. Now, as you can see, it's starting to get the wear on it. Okay, now as you can tell, the wash is a lot darker, and the piece, I'm going to move the camera so you guys can see. You can see how it's starting to have that dark, vintage leather look, and that's what I'm going for with this particular. That's what I'm going for this particular piece. Is I want that vintage leather look. And just like before, damp it down, blot it with a cotton swab, like so. Don't worry if you get any on your shirt. Cotton swab will just wipe it away since you dull coated it. Okay. Alright, I'm going to let that dry, and I will see you guys when it dries. Okay, now that our belt is dry, what we're going to do is I'm going to take my original base color that I used on it, and I'm just going to take a little bit, and I'm going to dry brush it back over it. Just lightly enough to give it that worn look. Another reason I'm doing this too is a lot of times when you use washes, you'll notice sometimes your wash will dry darker or lighter in some cases in certain areas. What this is doing is basically I'm coming in and I'm basically just touching up the wash where it dried and kind of just giving it a worn look. It's actually a really good thing to do with leather. When you're trying to paint leather, because leather has a worn look to it. So, but it actually, in this case, it actually did dry a little darker in some areas than I prefer. So I'm just basically dry brushing over on them with just a lighter shade, just to kind of blend things in a little bit. You just want to inspect the piece when you do a wash too. You want to inspect it, make sure that you like where your wash is going. It's kind of hard for the camera to see exactly how this is looking. We'll try to position the piece so the camera can see. Another thing too, when you're dry brushing, it's always a good idea to make sure that you do not have too much paint on your brush. Sometimes you might get a little bit too much on your brush, and then what you're doing is you're kind of just like, forcing it, and it's, actually painting the piece, because the point of dry brushing is where you basically just get as little as paint on possible on your brush, and then you just go over the area that you're dry brushing, and it just picks up little areas at a time. It picks up it just starts painting little at a time, and that's what you want when you're dry brushing. It's very subtle and everything. I really like the way this belt's coming out. Some of you have also might have noticed that there's quite a bit of parts to painting that I've added. I mean, I possibly could have done it with less, but like I said, this is my first instructional videos, so I'm just doing it the way I do it, because the way I paint kits is I do a lot of back and forth. So hopefully you guys are finding some great useful information, and to the people who's never painted a resin kit, or a figure for that matter, hopefully this is going to inspire you to pick it up. It's a great hobby. It's fun. A lot of people who build tanks and airplanes, they like to try. They can be good figure painters. I used to know a guy who was really good at figure painting. And he was a master tank builder, but he got really good at painting figures, and then eventually he liked figures so much he gave up tanks, which I was surprised. Okay, now I'm going to show you what I've done. As you can see how worn the belt looks now? That is what you want. You want it to have that leather look, but still look, look worn. Alright, now what I'm gonna do is, just because I'm going to, this time I'm gonna very lightly do it. I'm gonna do another oil wash, but I'm gonna go much lighter than I did before. And if I do this the way I'm planning on doing this, this is gonna be the final. There will be no more dry brushing after this. I just want to just stain it this time. The last time we still stained it, but it was more of a what do you call, it was more of a painting, but painting it with the oil. But I went a lot darker. This, I'm just wanting to just stain it a little bit darker than I was, just a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to show you guys what I did. Now see how it's a little darker than it was? That's the look I'm looking for. Okay guys, as you can see, I have started base coating the gun black. That's basically all I'm doing, is I'm just adding, just base coating it black. I'm kind of running out of time here, so what I'm going to do is I'll see you guys for part 9. If you guys have any questions, contact me. This is Painter for Hire 1975. See you later.